we're approaching the August 17th settlement date, where it's going to be a requirement, which I didn't fully realize that until recently, that they are requiring, if you are showing a house to a buyer, you have to have a buyer broker agreement. I don't know how they're going to find out that you don't, if that's even a thing, but I do think that if you go and you show, because they're saying it's a requirement, if I go and I show a house and I don't have that buyer broker agreement and they use another agent to write the offer and that agent has a buyer broker agreement, because you did not do what you were supposed to do, which is having that buyer broker agreement in place, you are no longer procuring cause. And this is going to be a problem that's going to start coming up, because you have, in the buyer broker agreement, it says that if I show the property and negotiate, it defines what procuring cause is. I show the property, I negotiate on behalf of the buyer certain things. But on the flip side, they're saying that if you do not have that agreement in place when you go to show that buyer a house, you're in the wrong. That's illegal, is what they're telling us. So I think it's going to create a lot of issues, especially, for those of you who work a lot of online leads. It's going to make conversations a lot tougher. When you start selling those buyer broker agreements, be confident in that agreement. Be confident that it's a good thing for you and your business. Be confident in how you explain it. Hey, listen, there is a lawsuit that we have to, basically, as industry professionals, we have to have these agreements in place because there's been just a lot of confusion in our industry. At the end of the day, my goal with all of my clients is to get you the best deal possible. So in this agreement, I'm going to put that my commission is 2.5%, and you guys can pick whatever you want, which is kind of cool about this whole thing, right? I can say, my commission is 3%. But here's my thing that I'm going to put in here for you. It is my obligation to negotiate it so that the seller, in one way or another, pays that 3%, with our offer. So I'm never going to have you pay it unless if it really comes down to that. But we would have to rewrite a whole new agreement. So just so you feel comfortable, I'm going to make sure that whenever I write the offer, I put in there that the seller pays for that commission. And essentially what you would do is you write the offer and you check, there's a box in the contract, the California Residential Purchase Agreement, that says the seller is to pay the obligations of the commission in the buyer broker agreement. Or you can type it out, or you can ask for a 3%, 2.5% credit so that it matches what your commission is. To me, the cool thing is I can call the listing agent. This is where it gets a little tricky, and I think that it's opening the door for more potential problems, is I can call the listing agent and I can say, hey, here's our offer that I'm submitting. I'm asking for a 3% commission. Listen, I know that I'm going to answer the phone. I'm sure you as a listing agent have experienced many times where people don't answer the phone, they don't communicate. I'm telling you right now, this buyer is using a lender I work with all the time. We're big on communication. I will always answer the phone if there's any issues, and I make sure to advise and warn my buyers ahead of time that there's going to be things that come up on inspections. I can't guarantee that they're not going to ask for things to be fixed, but I can guarantee they're not going to get cold feet because we have disclosed to them and warned them about things. So that's why I'm asking the seller to pay my commission, is I know I'm going to keep the deal together without, of course, representing my client fairly. And I think when you start selling yourself like that to the listing agent, it's going to be easier for them to then sell you to their seller as to why they should pay that fee. At the end of the day, you should probably put together a net sheet for them and include that with the offer, because there are a lot of agents that don't understand all of the different closing costs and how to explain that to their seller. So if I present that with the offer, a lot of times these agents just forward the email, or they download it all and send it to their seller. So if I send a net sheet and saying, hey, my buyer is going to split escrow fees, title insurance, and this is where, the home warranty comes into play, all this stuff. When you send that net sheet to them, it's just going to help them present that, hey, even though they're asking for a 3% commission, they're splitting a lot of these other closing costs that this agent who's asking for a 2% commission, their buyer is asking for you to pay a lot of these closing costs. So the 3% is actually breaking, it's matching your net proceeds. So with that being said, we got to get really good about our fees. So that's why the rep from American Home Shield is coming in, and she's going to teach a class on the fees, because you can put a more accurate home warranty in there if you're going to ask the seller to pay for it, or if you're going to ask your buyer to pay for it, you need to know the cost of it. And so if you say it's around $650, it's actually not. The minimum package, that like the base amount for a decent size house, not a massive house, is $570. I believe it's $570. So that's a big difference for some people. Same thing with the natural hazards disclosure. It normally is around $100, but you're going to be able to put on there in your net sheet that you provide them that it's $50, and you can maybe ask your buyer to pay for it because it's only $50. And it's just extra ways to, one, help your clients get their offer accepted. I mean, if my client has to spend $50 on a natural hazards disclosure instead of $100, and $570 on their home warranty versus $650, but the seller pays for my commission, I think that's definitely a win-win, more in the favor of my client, if that makes sense. So the other thing that we're working on, Mary and I, is there are ways to do it, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. But essentially, for your loan, there are programs now where you, instead of having a title company, right? Because we have escrow and title here, you would have escrow handle the escrow part, but we would choose a different, basically an attorney to clear title. There's a lot of nuances. I'm going to have more information coming out about that, but it's just an extra way for buyers to save more money and make their offer more competitive, especially when you are asking for the seller to pay your commission. Of course, if the market gets really crazy again and you get a lot of competition and the buyer can't afford to pay your commission, that's when you need to start working closely with the lender of, hey, can we do an interest rate bump? And I'll, where they get a credit back, and that way it'll help cover closing costs and they'll pay for my commission. Can we do, can they do any type of grants that are available, right? You can start getting a little bit more creative with it. And I'm more than happy to sit down and brainstorm ideas if that market starts to lean that way. And that's what, we're all here for.